we live in our own world as individuals, right? Our interpretation of existence has to filter through everything that we've experienced. We are the sum of our memories, and as such, we filter all inputs, right? Because your body takes in billions of bits of information all the time, every second. Just boom, boom, boom. Every hair on your body sends a signal to your brain, right? All the sensory inputs. Now, obviously, you are not conscious of all of this. All of your organs function. There are plenty of things that go on that are well beyond your conscious. Yeah. So, what you do perceive of reality goes through your filters. What did you have your attention fixated on? What do you have experience with previously? What drew your attention? What was important? What was paramount? Now, when it comes to thoughts, we're definitely very limited by the languages that we speak, right? Because if there isn't a word for something, it's very difficult to conceptualize it. So not only is it limited by the language, it's limited by your particular knowledge of that language or multiple languages, right? Because it's not now just the confines of the words in existence, it's the words within your vocabulary. And so there's a lot of experiences, a lot of emotions, a lot of just concepts that cannot be vocalized. And if we can't vocalize things, we don't run it through our inner monologue, it's kind of difficult to chew on, right? Really difficult to conceptualize because we are pinned into this box, right? We live in fictional realms, at least in a lot of different ways, right? There's language, then there's written language, right? And then there's media like this, right? Then there's fictions, created stories, created myths, right? So, depending on your level of involvement in life, your overall experiences, the region that you came from, your general intelligence, and then usually the inclinations that you have, right? You amass so much information, but how much of that is being utilized at any given point? I suppose that is what's up to the individual and should be overall in my opinion, the marker of a successful life is your ability to digest information, to expand, to grow as this little world, our perception of it, is able to expand, right? Continually strive to alter your perception, to just evolve as an individual. Because that's really the only way that we're going to get past this current situation as a species. And I think that that's kind of the greater point is that it doesn't take everybody changing. It's just enough people have to change. Enough people have to evolve. They have to become enlightened. And those individuals do have to be in communication with each other. We do need to have a vision for the future and we need to actively take steps in that direction, right? Now, a lot of people do not necessarily have the capacity. Well, at least half of the population is going to function at half efficiency or less, right? That's just math. If you have 100 people, 50 people are going to be better than another 50 people, right? So at least half the population is below average, right? So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've known plenty of people with very high IQs who self-destructed at young ages, as well as people who aren't necessarily the brightest, but they're diligent or honorable and have become successful through strict behavior, right? I know many intelligent people that are tortured souls, right? And I know so many simplistic people that are happier than anything. The hell? There's a guy I know works at the gas station, makes shit money. He's done it for like 15 years. Dude, he's happier than I will ever be. He'll tell you about the $500 blazer he bought 6 years ago. And dude, smile on his face. He knows everybody's cigarette brands. Just, hey man, have a good day. You have a better day. And it's just, I don't know. There's a happiness to the simplicity, I suppose. But, ugh, I don't feel like that's the type of individual that I am. And I think that there are a lot of other individuals like me who are very frustrated with the status quo, right? All of the problems that have the ability to be solved, and they're blatantly obvious to anyone who cares to pay attention. You know, we use toxic petroleum products in the vast majority of our manufacturing. Like, I'm not even concerned about the CO2, really. And that's what everybody's getting all hyped about is the burning of petroleum. It's like, no, no, no. The problem is all the microplastics that are messing up not only the human species, but the animal species as well, right? The vast majority of products that we use can be made out of completely renewable and biodegradable hemp. Like some 25,000 different things can be made from hemp. Like, it's absurd. That's also why it's been illegal for so long, you know. So we as a species kind of need to get past this rough spot. And it's going to take some free thinkers and it's going to take unification. We need to motivate, not to hate and build up and not tear down, you know. We need to think outside of the box. We need to broaden our perspectives. Different people who have dedicated their lives to to expanding, to curiosities, to solving problems, to creating. Create, create, create. We need to create. We become depressed when we don't. The majority of people who are not happy with their lives do not feel like they are creating. That would be my assumption. How many people have relatively meaningless, if not meaningless, then redundant lives? Like mediocrity is the killer, right? It's not exceptional, it's just good enough. At least in affluent societies. Like it would be very rewarding if the only jobs that we had to do was survive, right? I'd assume that if you are quite hungry and you need to feed your family in the wilderness, killing a deer would be something that would give you a tremendous amount of pride, right? You would have a large amount of joy at that accomplishment. That is not the same amount of joy that somebody gets from working at a grocery store and earning a shitty wage, or fast food, or cash register, or whatever they are doing. You bust your ass all week long doing construction. That's the gecko. Okay. Yep, he's out and about. Leopard gecko. So, we understand a lot of the problems. We understand why we can't solve a lot of the problems, or how we can solve the problems, but why we're not able to implement them, right? There are certain restricted restrictions that exist within fictional societies, like within the fictions of society, right? And it's really important to have fictions, right? Because that's how you get mass cooperation, right? Without fictions, you really can't have a population that exceeds 250, maybe 500 people, right? Because you can communicate through like rumor and knowing the gossip, and everyone's like kind of in family clan type things, and you can function at that level. But like you can't get thousands and thousands of people, let alone millions and billions, to operate and function smoothly without belief in certain fictions, right? Like money or religion or governments, laws, all of that. No. Just because they're fiction does not mean that they don't carry weight in reality, right? Because they are treated as serious entities, they have all the power of serious entities. Like corporations can own property. They have a lot of ways that they function like an individual. You know, they can own patents, they can own property, they can pay taxes, they can get fined, they can do whatever. But there's no person behind it. It is a shell, right? It's very much so a fabrication. It is a fiction, but it's able to do incredible things within our world because we all interact with these fictions, right? It's a wild, crazy situation we find ourselves in, and it happens step by step. There were definitely some malicious figures involved, and they should be held to account, as well as different things that need to be sorted out in order for us to move forward. There's been a lot of entities holding back the motions of progress, right? Now, it is really important for a society and for people to feel like they have something, right? Private property is a big deal. Intellectual property is a big deal. It is considered a right. But when these things get monopolized and bought out and all of this, then we have an issue. So, if you own a vehicle company, you can snatch up a bunch of patents, right? Or let's say you sell petroleum, right? You can pay a bunch of people and they can run studies and they can say that all of the byproducts of the petroleum that you want to use in consumer goods are viable, right? You want to sell pesticides or fluoride or any of these other things. You can just wave your magic wand and poof, you now have another viable product on the market. And then let's just say your corporation gets sued, not you, right? You can own a part of it, but you also don't suffer the ramifications of it. So, through this, you can commit all sorts of crimes, right? It's the same way that governments operate. A lot of the things that that government does are criminal, right? And nobody ever gets in trouble for it. So, like, imagine if you as an individual decided to pay mercenaries to go and do half the shit that the government did. Unless you're in cahoots with them and you pay them and all this other fun, which there's plenty of that, you know, the Koch brothers and all that fun. But and that's tip of the iceberg. So you don't have all that cover, then you're done. But if you play and you're a part of the club, then you can do whatever the fuck you want, basically. But if we as private citizens committed the same atrocities as governments, well, we'd be executed more than likely. But yeah, nobody gets in trouble, right? Trillions of dollars go missing from the United States taxpayers. Nobody gets in trouble, right? There were no weapons of mass destruction. Nobody gets in trouble. There's no explanation for a plethora of events, and then there were crimes that were outright confessed to by, like declassified information. No problem. No one gets in trouble. Nobody cares. And there are people who care, I guess, but they don't have necessarily the ability to do or say anything about it. So isn't that just a little bit frustrating? You know? Like we understand how to use medication in emergency type things, but there are natural ways to heal through the food. Like if we don't dump a bunch of toxicity, like toxic ingredients into our body, like our body will take care of itself as long as you make sure that it has the right nutrients, right? Majority of things that make you sick are like the toxicity level within your body or a nutrient that is your body's being starved of. So if you figure out either of those things, you should be good to go. Now, there's also structural, like chiropractics. If your muscles twitched or your back is twitched in a certain way, it's going to put pressure on different organs. It's going to mess you up. But like the vast majority of doctors don't even look into that. Right? There is a large portion of insurances that do not cover chiropractics. You just give them pain medication. You could go off on a whole rant about the pharmaceutical company and pharmaceutical, like just pain reliever, like Oxycontin, starting the whole opium wars, and then the Afghanistan producing all of the opium, but like they weren't before we got there. It's weird timing, but you could very much say that there is a war being waged within on the free people of the world, right? It should be blatantly obvious to any people who are going to pay attention or who care to pay attention at all, right? They outright talk about it with the Great Reset. You will own nothing. You won't have rights, but you'll be happy, right? You get taxed for every mile you drive, but they have private jets. You see, you go live in mass cities that just breed sociopaths, are not self-sustained, don't have any fresh air. You go live there. We'll go live on the beachfront property. You can't drive, because otherwise the oceans will flood my house. We don't want that. So, you get what's happening. Do as I say, not as I do, all that fun. But technologically, we've approached a point where you can't have a total surveillance state. You can't have total control over a global population, right? And so that makes it very, very pivotal time in history. We are going to determine the world that our children and our grandchildren are going to inherit. And if that doesn't disturb you to your core, then you're probably not a parent. But you think about some little kid that you love, be it a sibling or a nephew, a niece, whatever, and understand we were mad about the world we got. Imagine what they're going to get, dude. We still have hope. They're going to grow up in a world without hope. They're going to grow up in a world without freedom. It is deplorable, the weakness that the general population has displayed. It is embarrassing. It's insulting to anyone who espouses themselves to be a free person. How easily we bend the knee and forfeit all of the work our ancestors put into this whole thing. You know, and the slavery and indigenous and all this other fun. It's like, people have been killing people for as long as they've been people. Like, we're all brothers and sisters on this planet, right? There were probably other humans and we killed them too. So, I don't know. At a certain point, let's focus on the slaves and the genocides going on right now and not the stuff from 200 years ago. Now, not to go off on this whole rant, there's a lot of white people that are all pissed off at black people, and there's a lot of black people all pissed off at white people. And it's really just really annoying because neither of you guys know what you're talking about the majority of the time. There's a lot of bullshit that the United States government and people in power did against ethnic people in relatively modern time. Like, the crack epidemic was not that long ago, right? You're telling me that rap music and privatized prisons pushing violence and drugs and all of this stuff into inner city communities targeted towards blacks. Like, they've been keeping the prisons going, right? Privatized prisons, 200 some dollars a day per inmate. Come on. The black community receives a lot of bullshit. And they have a lot of bullshit. They also have the worst educational system and the highest crime rates and all this other fun, right? But they keep voting for the Democrats who gave them all of these things. A lot of the things that were designed to help them were just designed to enslave them, right? Now, like, I don't necessarily have the biggest setup for my race. Like, when I lived in Philadelphia, I was white, and then I moved out to the woods of Pennsylvania, and I was Mexican, right? Because I'm half Mexican. So I don't have a loyalty to this or that or whatever. But I grew up in Philadelphia. I remember the drug dealers. I remember drug baggies all over the streets, you know? And it's not as bad then as it is now. It's insane. So, like, you have generation upon generation, and it compounds the issue. So, like, no, the majority of white people do not understand what it is to be an inner city minority, right? There's no way that they could. They haven't seen it. They live in their own little world. Everybody is the sum of their experiences. And we have a really difficult time overlaying that. Now, listen, all these black people think they're all tough and everything like that, talking shit on all the white people. Like, none of these motherfuckers own slaves. Like, I can't even tell you how many Irish people I know, and they came over after, right? A lot of them came here and then immediately fought in the Civil War, and they were treated like shit too. The Italians were treated like shit, right? When America was founded as a nation, there was already no slavery in the majority of the colonies. But that's besides the point. The whole thing is like the Chinese are killing Uyghurs right now, but they're still doing all of our manufacturing. They have control over our pharmaceuticals. Like, they're actively committing genocide right now. They've been using slave labor to manufacture all of our stuff, and nobody cares. Nobody cares about the suicide nets around the cell phone factories where people can't kill themselves because, they want to. Now China's coming out with the 40-hour work week to promote whatever. That's good. Like, you guys forget about Tibet, Hong Kong, and like all the other things that we're supposed to be very aggravated about. Now they're going on. Taiwan. We'll see how that plays out. Right? There's all sorts of horrible things going around all over the planet right now that we can do something about. We can't do anything about that. That shit's gone. Like I said, I'm half Mexican, so like my ancestry is literally, I'm a descendant of rape babies, basically. Right? The Spaniards ravaged Mexico. That is where I am descended. Like, no matter what, there were some killing and raping and pillaging and all sorts of wildness in everyone's ancestry. We've been around for a long time. And we're trying to become more civilized, apparently. So if we're going to, let's actually create a civilization that thrives, one that operates on common sense. Like, we're so divided by petty emotional differences that we don't focus on like, we're arguing about the color of the ship as it's sinking. Like, yeah, we should fix it, but after we're done, are we going to paint it blue or are we going to paint it red? and everybody's fighting and fighting and fighting. You got 10% of the people on the boat being like, guys, it's sinking. Everybody else is too busy fighting over what color they want to paint it. But hey, hopefully, hopefully, some people get it through their head that this is the last chance to dance. You know, my level of frustration is mounting with just the incompetency of the powers that be. And I don't think that it's necessarily incompetence. I think that a lot of it is by design and definitely with some malicious intent. So let that sink in for you as well, because they do want it to be you in a state of confusion, right? That makes you more emotional, which makes you more susceptible, right? Not to mention, then you get into a state of anxiety, you have more stress, your immune system goes down, you become more flighty, right? Try and broaden your perspective. Try and do your own research. Try and expand the little world that you live in and try to make it a little bit better. Please. It's good. That's what we all need to be doing, myself included. I need to strive towards ever improving, and I do fall short of it. But hey, that's life. I wish you all the best of luck. We got more in common with each other than those that want us to fight.